data analytics and financial services for 15 years. So I'm really passionate about finding ways to enable insight into financial services with data.
And my name is James Smalls. I'm a business intelligence UX developer at Sonic Automotive. I've been at Sonic for about 2 years now, and my job is to kind of take the requirements from the business and convert them into reporting that makes the most sense for them.
Awesome, cool. If you don't know me, I'm Holly, so I work in our product marketing team, and I'm really excited to get started with you guys. So every time we do Connect, we start off with what we call, a lightning round, which is just a fun round of questions. So we're going to do some fun things. So the first question I have for these guys, what is your favorite piece of technology across the board? It can be anything you want. Go.
It's a very broad list of things that we can think of, but something that comes to mind is probably Raspberry Pi. Who here knows what a Raspberry Pi is? Okay, so not a whole lot of you. A Raspberry Pi is a really cool, very cheap, like $35 piece of, it's like a small computer, and I think it's actually a charity. And so the idea is that it's super modular and very easy to learn. It's Linux-based, and it comes with a lot of education. So it gets like kids into STEM and learning how computers work, but then also hobbyists can do things like create, media servers or like home automation. So yeah, maybe somebody could, if they're up to it and willing for a challenge, maybe install a MicroStrategy iServer on a Raspberry Pi. It'd be an interesting task.
So let's see, my answer is a little bit more basic and less techy. I have big windows in my condo, and I have blinds that are controlled by Alexa. I use them like 5 times a day. There's a sheer layer and a blackout layer, so depending on the privacy I want and the lighting I want and the darkness, my automated Alexa blinds are my favorite.
So you talk to your blinds?
I talk to my blinds.
Confirming
Blackout
that. Okay.
up, sheer layer down, living room, bedroom.
Nice.
It's an evolving dialogue.
Cool.
Mine would probably be YouTube for a bunch of different reasons, not only just education. I love music. It's got a great set of DJ sessions I can just listen to while I work. It's, again, really, really educational. I can learn a whole lot of things, and I can apply a lot of different techniques I learned from YouTube to my work, to life, to whatever.
Nice. Good answers. Good answers. All right, so I'm going to ask, we normally have 3, I'm going to do 2 just because we had to get the camera up and rolling. Second question, what was your favorite part of Keynote? Like, all of me. You can choose one thing.
So I'm probably obligated to say my boss Jess and his keynote. But other than that, I mean, it's hard to beat the futures. The futures shows like all the cool possibilities and what's coming, and it always sparks a lot of discussion about where we can take the play.
There's a question about keynote future for both. The generative AI schema design tool, that was pretty sweet. But then in the keynote, this might be something that but the ability to take a dossier and configure it as the landing page for your library.
Again, with the features, the chance to kind of systemize design within MicroStrategy itself, instead of moving things from one design program to another, to putting it finally in MicroStrategy, I think that's going to be a huge game changer.
Yeah, I love that. And if you're watching this and you missed futures, there's a lot of great stuff coming up, all with Safe Harbor, as we all know. But it's really exciting to see where we're going in the future. And then one of the main parts of the keynote that you might have heard, we always talk about it, but is data as a product. So being able to, take data and be able to use it for more than what we generally think about it. What ways do you guys see yourselves using data to meet the needs of users across your organization? And I'm going to start with Brennan on this one.
So when I think about using data to meet the needs of our stakeholders, our MicroStrategy implementation and just our data program in general is a little bit different because most of our stakeholders are outside of our IT domain, and they're actually state government agencies. And so it's not just helping them use and get insights from data, but it's helping them live into this strategic idea we have called network supervision. They work in bank supervision. So it's how can we use data and technology to help them like collaborate with one another and share insights more effectively so that they, in addition to just using and understanding data, they can network with one another. So,
James, do you have anything to add? Or Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you were talking about data as a product, and that mindset of instead of data just being an asset and treating it as a product has been a relatively recent mind shift in our overall data strategy, I would say. We've been going across a data reinvention over the past several years, as long as I've been there, essentially. And that's been kind of our most recent sort of realization, is that that's going to be how we can structure our data in a really scalable way that can be used across a number of divisions, not just reporting and analytics, but data science and customer use cases and all that stuff.
Got it. And then for Hilton, we especially saw that you guys are collecting data across different touch points during the customer journey. With that, how do you have it in the experience when we're visiting hotels, when we're visiting or traveling at Hilton, how do you guys make sense of all the data and how do you use it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it all comes down to focusing on really that customer experience. So, whether in your hotel operations, reviewing customer survey data that's been collected and distributed, or whether you're at the corporate office understanding general customer sentiment and what new features are working, how is the digital key product working, what's the error rate, are we making improvements? There's a lot of tactical operational use cases for data, and then just to tie it back strategically, again, it's all about focusing on our customer. Like all the data that we collect, we need to be able to tie that back to improving the customer experience and the customer journey.
Awesome. So my next question relates to, when we're obviously talking about, we want all of our users to be data driven, we want all of our users to have access to data. I think one thing that we see across organizations is the issue of data silos. Even at MicroStrategy, we see that sometimes. How would you say that you guys have overcome those data silos or instituted systems to overcome that?
So at CSBS, we definitely, but both internally and with our external stakeholders, we experience silos. Engagement is a big key for us, like learning and understanding our customers and what their needs are to our success. And part of connecting with your stakeholders involves, building data literacy and establishing data culture. So we do a number of things, whether it is, we have an event called Data Palooza where we just bring everybody interested in data for like a fun kind of 3-day series to grow the base of people that will be willing to come to the table at a later time to like talk about how we can build and refine our products. We also have an internal like data club that is
data club.
Inside
like
the
the chess
organization.
club of
Anybody
data.
can join. We nerd out. We have a group chat in Teams, and it sounds kind of silly, but giving people these forums to be expressive about data and like charts and graphs really helps get a conversation started, and those conversations inevitably lead to better products and solutions.
Very cool. Anyone else?
I know that I can say at Sonic that data is being developed and created in different areas, but it's still accessible to everyone who needs it. And we're very serious about democratizing our data. We're working towards a single source of truth, and we're being vigilant finding data sources that don't connect and making them make sense. On top of that, we're also trying to develop things within our reporting itself to kind of democratize the data, having data definitions, source and information windows, just making all the calculations and all of the sources of these data as accessible as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think, James, the other thing for you all is at Sonic Automotive, I think you guys have done a great job at thinking about, you know, how to be innovative across the product portfolio that MicroStrategy has, or choosing ones. I think one of the biggest ones is hyperintelligence, and we know we've seen you all at World Present. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you instituted Hyper at Sonic?
Yes, so our guest experience center, called the GEC, is our call center that helps customers get dealership directions, schedule test drives, find hours, things of that sort. It's a huge call center that refers to a lot of different dealerships across the entire country. So finding that information for each individual dealership on an individual level is really, really tough when you're searching through Google or the website or wherever you're gonna try to go to find that information. We use the HyperCards to kind of consolidate all of that into one place where they can just hover over a dealership, see all the relevant information, and resolve these issues for the customers at the speed of the conversation. So.
Yeah. How many in the audience used Hyper? Yeah. Oh, everyone just woke up. How many? Any Hyper users? Wow. Well, okay. That are not MicroStrategy Hyper users. Okay. 2, 3. Cool. What about Dossier? Anybody use Dossier at the organization? More hands. All right. So I think another really cool thing to think about is, and Ben has worked at MicroStrategy before he went to Hilton. I want to ask you, when we think about the migration of our customers from documents to Dossier, and hopefully you agree, but why would you say that they should move to Dossier?
Yeah, so I think the obvious answer is speed to market, number one. Just being able to spin up a new solution takes, you know, a small fraction of the time it used to make like the pixel perfect report services documents. But in the early days, I remember before they were even called Dossier, I think it was called Visual Insight Dashboards. That's a throwback for those that remember. You know, there was a big feature gap between report services documents and Visual Insight Dashboards, now Dossiers. So you did actually have to make a conscious decision. It's like, well, do I want the features that I can do to make like a fully fledged application or solution, or do I want just like quick hits and answers? So I think in a lot of cases people prefer the quick hits and answers, but it's been really cool to see the journey over the last several years to see that gap close significantly. Like transaction services being a big one. Like that's a huge piece of functionality that now being available through Library and Dossier, you know, really lets us get back to creating full applications and not just quick visual insights, all within the Dossier interface and with the same speed to market.
And Holly, we're in the process of moving some of our stuff from reports to dossiers, and it drives standardization, right, in libraries, but also there were some really cool dossier stuff in futures and keynotes, like the ability to have a dossier look one way when you see it on a screen versus export differently when you print it to PDF. We have a lot of use cases around exporting things, and
yeah, so the ability to make it very personalized to what you need.
Also the Excel plugin, like the PowerPoint integration, that was really I'm looking forward
You're
to.
Watching Safe Harbor, but yes,
sorry.
It's really fun stuff. And again, I think we're trying to make Dossier and data in general more accessible, right? So a lot of the stuff on our roadmap is injecting data where people are. So those top applications are where we want to start integrating MicroStrategy. All right, so moving on a little bit, I wanted to ask you guys, like speaking of productivity and getting data into the hands of users, well, actually applications, let's go that route. When we have dossiers, and Brennan, you mentioned this, we now are thinking a lot of times about making them applications. Do you guys have any, you know, top applications or even products that you've built or been a part of, like across your years at your organizations?
I think for me, one of the cool applications we built at MicroStrategy using transaction services was called the Corporate Request Center, which allowed executives to, on like their iPads and their iPhones, approve things from like, you know, a multitude of different systems that didn't talk to each other. So using MicroStrategy as like a pseudo integration layer for like a one-stop shop for them to go and make approvals. But more recently, because that was like 10 years ago, you know, I think the big evolution that we're going through at Hilton is taking all the great self-service dashboards that we've built for corporate and bringing that down to properties over the course of this year and early next year. And just to see that explosion in growth and users that we're going to be bringing it to is extremely exciting.
At CSBS, I don't know if this is like a favorite application, but it's something I'm really excited about, which is, we call it our community launchpad, and it's a way for users, power users who are building dossiers to share that across all stakeholders without needing to officially move it to production. So it's like a section in our production environment where we share just cool dashboards and reports. And so I'm really excited about that. And it has been a good way to get conversations going about new and innovative products.
Awesome. James, do you have one?
I think the one that I'm most excited about is the app that we presented earlier today at World, our finance and insurance reporting engine. Abbreviated, it's FIRE. It was one of our document to dossier conversions, and we've leveraged a lot of the library built-in functionality to kind of make that thing work and provide for the users what they needed, which is like bookmark views, sorted favorite content, things of that sort, while still letting them get more granular with the data itself. It was really a first of its kind of implementation of the library, and we're very, very excited to kind of implement that moving forward with new reporting that's coming out from our team.
Awesome. All doing very creative and innovative things with data. I think it's interesting to think how people can put their own spin on applications, because you really can do a lot with dossiers. I mean, you saw Morgan show a few examples in Keynote. Everything these guys are saying that takes, what we have as a software, but really tailoring it to their own needs and their own portals of products is amazing. And one thing I know Ben mentioned this very briefly was the word self-service analytics. When you think of MicroStrategy, I think a lot of times in the market, we don't perceive it as being self-service. It's more always around enterprise or for enterprise analytics. Can you guys talk about cases where MicroStrategy does help to provide for self-service use cases?
Yeah, so a lot of the dashboards that we've built, and due to the nature of Hilton's organization, is there's hundreds and hundreds of personas and different use cases for a single data set. And one of the things that we honestly kind of struggle with is we've started with having what Jeff likes to call the everything by everything dossier, which is, from a user design perspective, kind of a no-no, but it's allowed our relatively small team in comparison to just maintain one or a smaller number of dossiers, less maintenance, faster time to market for enhancements and new data elements. And then we put it in the hands of the users, and then they go and curate and create their custom views as needed. So it really does fill in the gap now, but again, as we start to scale out, we're going to want to get a little bit more specific about who we're targeting.
Yeah.
So we definitely have the traditional self-service, as in blank canvas dossier, and you build something off that. But outside of that, we're really trying to think about self-service in a way where our stakeholders don't even understand that they're doing self-service. We just have a suite of products that are integrated and embedded with one another, and you can kind of jump back and forth to, so that our stakeholders are helping themselves and getting the information they need through an intuitive experience without really feeling like they're building something or doing self-service. So.
Yeah, I think just to jump in there, that's really interesting, because a lot of times our customers will come to us and they say, yeah, we want to put, we want to have our end users actually have like authoring perspective, but it's like lightweight authoring. So a lot of times they'll integrate, attribute metric selectors within the dossier and library, but it's not full access to all of the authoring, which is kind of what you're getting to, a more controlled authoring experience. Yeah, and then do you have anything to add, James?
I know that we have some users.
We love self-service.
I know that we have some users that definitely kind of build their own dossiers, and our team kind of helps them with that as they run into issues and things of that sort. I would say that a big chunk of our work is gathering requirements from the users, figuring out what it is they actually want, if we have the data available to kind of build that thing, and us kind of doing it in tandem with them. as they kind of build their requirements out from what they're kind of trying to do.
Very cool. Awesome. All right, so one of the last questions I want to ask you all, pivoting a little bit away from the platform today, what do you all think of some of the later technologies that are coming out, or latest, with like ChatGPT and other things like that? How do you love them? Do you hate them? What do you think of like ChatGPT?
I think it's easy to look at these things and feel uncertain or afraid of the future just because we don't know exactly how it's going to impact our lives in 5 to 10 years. But my viewpoint being in data and analytics is that it's going to become another tool in the toolbox, right? So I don't think it's going to replace any of our jobs. I think it's just going to make us all more efficient and allow us to do more in a shorter amount of time. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. You still need a person to, guide the AI in terms of, managing the results and validating the results of whatever's produced. I think the leap in productivity is probably, in my view, comparable to when Google first kind of became ubiquitous and just searching for things on the internet became a lot faster. I think that, but in sort of more productivity space, is how generative AI and things like ChatGPT are going to play a factor.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be all about efficiency, and it feels like we're so early in this technology that it's hard to even wrap your head around what the use cases for generative AI tools like ChatGPT might be. But without citing any safe harbor stuff from futures, MicroStrategy is thinking about.
He's doing good now. Now you got it.
It's impressive. I've never seen a use case for generative AI in the data analytics space until yesterday.
And I can just agree on top of what both of them said. It's going to pretty much work to augment our associates and help them do their jobs better. It could be a symbiotic relationship where humans do what they're best at, being empaths, focusing on more complicated tasks and decision making, while the AI just focuses on those day-to-day monotonous type of things that we humans do now. So I think it's a really huge opportunity to train, upskill, and make people a lot better.
That's awesome. I think it is interesting. I think Fong also kind of touched on this in the main keynote. It's a way that we're going to get such intricate data and such insights, but the real question is how will we use it? So if we have those leaders that are very charismatic or do know what they're looking at to make sense of it, that's like going to be the key in the future is how you use it. But, all right, so everyone is ready for this last question, and I'd love to hear your all's perspectives too after we hear theirs. What feature did you not hear in futures that you wish you would have?
So to paraphrase, what wasn't touched on that we were hoping for?
Yes.
Okay.
What are your hopes and dreams?
So, one of the things, again, when I just look at the role that our team plays in the data and analytics space for Hilton, we have a lot of people that spend a lot of time digging through the data to understand why things change. So in the futures, with the insights and pinning insights and tracking the KPIs, I think all that's a really good first step, just to understand which KPIs changed in the first place, right? So for Hilton, the rooms sold or the rooms revenue, maybe it was outside of a typical variance for a week over week, period comparison. But the question then becomes, why did it change, right? So if there's a way for us to seamlessly integrate into the product, a way to check through all the different dimensionality and all the different elements of each attribute to say, this was the driver for this change, is this booking channel, or is, this specific property was impacted for some reason last week. I think that would save our analysts a ton of time.
The buzz was that everybody is so excited about transaction services in dossiers, and it is very exciting. So I don't see this as something I didn't see because it's there, transaction services and dossier, but I think there's a big opportunity to make interacting with the data like easier and more lightweight. So like evolving that transaction services and dossiers so that you empower the users with a greater ability to do whatever, change, alter, update, delete data in there.
And I can say from a UX perspective, probably just an enhancement of the platform analytics in general.
Yeah.
Just getting the ability to just see how users are navigating through these dashboards, where they're clicking to, what opportunities are kind of there to kind of make their process, make their workflow a little bit more streamlined. And yeah, just take a look at how they're kind of performing the dashboard in general, so we can kind of design more intentionally as we keep building these dashboards.
I think that was good because you all went very different routes. That was good. Also, transaction services is a really good point because we didn't show this in futures, but one other thing on the roadmap is the transactional forms and dossier, right? So right now we have the transactional grid, but elevating that to even be more seamless. But that was my last question. Can we give them a round of applause and yourselves for... Yeah, we're the only thing stopping you from happy hour. But I did want to open it up for any questions for the team because they are here, lots of knowledge. Any questions? All right, one question here. Yes.
Touched on this a little bit. Curious to see. And how are you monitoring usage? And are there specific KPIs you're looking at?
So right now we have a platform analytics person that focuses on how users are kind of navigating through these different things. He builds out reports that kind of focuses on specific dashboards and dossiers that we want to look further into. That said, I definitely feel that there's some opportunity to kind of get even more granular into the details of what's going on, like things like bounce rate, time spent within a dashboard on a certain page, or number of clicks on certain filters, things like that. I just feel like there's a lot of room to kind of enhance it and get even more granular with how people are using it.
Yeah, we're excited about platform analytics. We are already using it. We're trying to evolve our the way we're thinking about it, because we have two metrics. One is the number of users and then the number of organizations. So we're trying to take a little bit more of a multi-dimensional approach to measuring engagement so that it's not just strictly on users, but by agencies and organizations that are using our platform.
Yeah, and in the reporting and BI space, it's difficult for us to prove value, and I think adoption is really the number one way for us to prove that. So it's definitely ladders up in Hilton for like our key commercial objectives actually. So yeah, number of users and really what we call engagement, which is like number of jobs per dossier, are two of the big ones that we track. But yeah, to the point that Brennan made about the next level of platform analytics and being able to actually see not just what dossiers are people running, but what filters, what selectors, what objects, what pages. That's going to be absolutely essential for us to get out of the everything by everything dossier and actually start moving into a more performant and curated set of dossiers that we can manage.
I feel like I can say it loud now, pretty loud. What do you think is like the most, you're going to get home from World, you're going to do one thing with MicroStrategy, what is the first thing that you're going to do?
That's a good one. So yeah, I mentioned the project where we're trying to take all of our corporate usage and expand it to property level. So as part of that journey, we haven't actually officially rolled out library yet to our audience, and that's going to be sort of the catalyst for us to do that, is that rollout. So as soon as I get home, I'm going to take all the lessons learned from what I've seen of how people use library. Sony had an interesting presentation about how they just better curate the onboarding experience. I think there's some interesting takeaways there. I think that's really kind of the big next step that we need to take as we prepare for that rollout.
So I have the same answer, just like a little different flavor, which is something that, and I already said this earlier in the panel, but something that's prevented us from rolling library out is the look and feel when you get in there. But now that you can make a dossier the landing page for your library, you can really customize what your users are seeing when they come in, which makes rolling out library and taking advantage of all its rich features like easier and way more feasible. So that's what is the one thing that's on my mind.
The first thing I'm going to do when I get back from World is try to learn as much about Workstation as I can. It seems like MicroStrategy is going in a direction where that's going to kind of be the base of operations. When you start managing data across different visualizations and different places like document, even, and dossier. So just seeing what powers are kind of like sitting in there, what opportunities are kind of there to kind of streamline our processes in general, and talking to our developers to see kind of what they know already, and figuring out how I can help and what we can kind of apply to our UX practice here.
And also the first thing I'm going to do when I get back is take a nap, because it has been a long 2 days with a lot of free.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, thank you all, 3 of you, and thank you all for being here. Another round of applause and happy hour.
Happy hour.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.